Welcome to the channel. In this episode I will show something what most people don't know, or they know but they don't realize how impactful it is, and based on strong arguments, I will show you why dots are the worst solution for you. This is another thing you won't see anywhere else, so feel free to leave a like and subscribe, and let's begin. At the very beginning, it is worth saying that dots mean damage over time. So any poison, bleeding, or burn which cause damage to be dealt over time. Apart from various skills, this effect is available in 3 legendary gems. This is 1-star Everlasting Torment, 2-star Viper's Bite, and 5-star Seeping Bile. 2 of them are already well known, so for now I will discuss Viper's Bite. Good practice is to analyze each stat separately: resonance, combat rating, damage dealt, additional effect, duration, and obviously chance to be applied. And apart from the chance of activation, if you are going to your Seeping Bile on rank 10, then it will give you much better stats than anything else on this list. However, most of us will never do it, and Viper's Bite at rank 10 is quite similar to Seeping Bile on rank 5. And most importantly, it has a 100% chance of activation. For Seeping Bile, it's just for percent. And it is worth mentioning that the poison from Seeping Bile bounced to another target, but still I would pick for myself 100% activation chance. So at this point, Seeping Bile is just weaker. Why haven't I mentioned Everlasting Torment? Because the chance of activation is equal to your crit chance. So for this gem, results is different for everyone. It is still a good option for a free-to-play or low spender, especially PvE-wise, but this gem is already well known, and I think this is simply the worst pick. So, considering how often we will activate the gem bonus, I think that unless you are a whale, Viper will be the best option. I must admit that I was wondering about the reason why Seeping Bile has only 4% activation chance compared to Viper's Bite. It makes no sense to me. And here it is worth noting that 2 gems have an additional bonus. For the Viper, it is a reduction in attack speed. For Bile, it is reduction of movement speed. So I was hoping that Seeping Bile could activate extra damage from a magic bonus you can see on screen, since slow works for that bonus. I tested it. Unfortunately, both gems do not increase damage, so you cannot use Seeping Bile as activator. So the low chance of activation remains even more unclear to me. With all that being said, a big advantage of dots, at least for me, is that first tick take place instantly, so it helps us increase our burst damage. However, the next ones are dealt at 1-second intervals, and it is worth remembering here that this is only a fraction of our basic damage, so you should not expect huge results, especially against weak targets. Dots should mainly increase the frequency of your attacks and diversify the source of damage. This helps increase the chances of activating other effects and, for example, improves the effectiveness of the Flagellants set. If you want to increase your damage with dots, you will mainly notice it in longer fights, because at this point we have come to the most important thing: duration. And how is it that so many authorities recommend dots-based builds? And here you get information that this is not a good solution for you. So let me explain. Each dot has its duration and the description, but here the game is lying to you because it is not the real value. The same thing applies to skills description. Real value comes from the difference between your potency and your opponent's resistance. Here you have example how descriptions change depending on different values. And it is worth noting that there is a mistake in the PvP max cap. Otherwise, it makes no sense, so this is how it should be. But I inspected these values, and the cap is impossible to achieve, at least for now. Here you can see that having potency below the opponent's resistance shows exactly same penalty to resistance bonuses. However, bonuses scale differently if potency is above the opponent's resistance. That's why we have different cap depending if difference is positive or negative. It is also worth noting that the game penalizes us up to a maximum of 35% if our potency is below, and rewards us with up to 50% bonus if the potency is above opponent's resistance. It is safe to assume that each potency point is worth more if the total value exceeds the opponent's resistance. To visualize it better, I prepared a performance chart for both statistics. Horizontal lines indicate negative and positive cap for potency, and these are the values marked directly from the game descriptions. Because bonuses have a logarithmic nature, then we don't have the opportunity to get the maximum bonus or penalty yet. Another important thing is the fact that if you have much less potency, let's say 2,000 less than opponent's resistance, and you are trying to reduce this difference, then additional 1,000 of potency won't be effective. You will achieve the best results only if you get at least 500 potency less than opponent's resistance. And it's best if you have more potency than your opponent's resistance, then you will notice the biggest bonus. However, for most of us it's impossible. So again, it is safe to assume that if you can't get close to your opponent's resistance, then you should not focus on potency at all. The resistance chart is exactly the opposite, and it will be much easier for you to reduce your opponent's potency if you invest in resistance. But it's best case scenario if you analyze it yourself. So now that we know how exactly potency and resistance works, let's move on to what effect it has on dots. Again, to visualize it well, I will present various scenarios on timeline. As an example, I chose the NECROMANCER's favorite bleeding spikes. It has 3 seconds basic duration. So let's assume that our potency is the same as the opponent's resistance, so we do not receive any bonus or reduction. Knowing that the first tick occurs at second 0, we get for ticks, and you can see it on timeline. This is the only situation where the duration from the description is true. But let's assume potency is much lower than resistance. Example is quite extreme, but very possible. From the previous chart, we know that in such a situation, we will receive a 28% penalty to the duration. Then we calculate how much this will reduce the actual duration. If the result contains a fraction that is less than 0.9, we need to return it to the previous number on the timeline. In this case it is 2, so we know that bleed will tick 3 times. But reverse the situation and let's see what it will look like. We know from the chart that such values will give us an additional 40% bonus. So bone spikes may tick 3 to 5 times depending on your stats. In another example, I would like to point out how effective a small amount of resistance over potency is. As I mentioned earlier, if the duration is not above 0.9 seconds, then it reduces 1 full tick. So this is another argument for investing in resistance. But I would like to get back to the previous example and explain it a little bit. Assuming that each timeline tick deals 1000 damage, then just because of the duration, we have a difference of 3000 to 5000 damage. And right now you probably don't think it's that much. Then it's worth considering a few other things, because this is just duration. Next thing is that whales have twice as much damage, an additional combat rating bonus, because legendary gems have a combat rating for sure higher than yours, and assuming you both have 33% critical chance, but yours just doubled where whales is tripled. This is basically what you can expect. Craft skill easily turns into massive damage. So I'm not surprised that some people praise dot-based builds, but most likely you should not listen to them, because it will never be as effective as for them. However, if you are determined to use dot-based build, then at least remember that there are 2 pieces of the Baron. It simply increases your duration by 30%, which is equal to having 950 more potency than the opponent's resistance. This video took me a lot of time, so I would be very happy if you share it with other players. Don't forget to hit a like button if you enjoyed this episode, and subscribe to stay updated with new ones. As always, thanks for watching.